Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, from the All Elite Zone family. Tonight, it's going to be a very fun, special episode. And of course, I need a very special friend to join me in this wonderful podcast, in this wonderful journey that we're going on tonight. So, Adam, he is the bearded wonder. He is everybody's favorite Tennessee man, everybody's favorite package delivery boy. So, Adam, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Lane.
Oh, I feel very thankful for you, man. I'm very thankful to have you as my co-host tonight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. So thank you guys for joining us on this very special evening of Thanksgiving-themed Talking Elite.
So before we kind of get started into the wrestling side of the Thanksgiving episode, what dish are you looking forward to eating tonight, Adam? What's your go-to Thanksgiving dish?
I have so many because I'm a fat kid. So, well, for me, it's always. It's obvious. It's always a turkey for everybody. But for me, I really love green bean casserole. It is probably one of my favorite dishes, and they do it differently down south because normally up north you get like the canned like green beans, and you mix all that together with the ingredients. Here it's fresh. It's like the actual big sized green beans that they put in a casserole. Like a lot of the Thanksgivings like Friendsgivings is what we call them. A lot of them we've gone to, they've been like the actual like like green beans, like not from cans, like natural green beans in the casserole. So I think that's my favorite dish that I always look forward to every Thanksgiving.
I'm a little jealous because that sounds amazing. Like you just putting that picture in my head. For me, it's my grandma's rolls. So my grandma, unfortunately we can't spend Thanksgiving with her. But when we moved down here to good old Texas, she did send my family the recipe. So we will enjoy the rolls for sure. And I'm excited because I'll probably eat at least a whole dozen by myself.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I will chow down on the turkey legs. That's the first thing I call is the turkey legs. And I will destroy a turkey leg, even if it's like this big.
One thing I did notice down here in the South too, maybe if we do a Friendsgiving, maybe we'll do it. But there's Cajun seasoned turkeys. It has a little bit of a kick, and I'm like, ooh, that sounds good. But unfortunately, my family, they're not too keen on the hot stuff. They don't like the Cajun seasoning. I'm the black sheep of my family. I love that kind of stuff. So,
well, we get the kick here in Tennessee, especially Nashville. You get the Nashville hot chicken. Like it's like the thing here. So it's like anytime I go back home, like up north in the Chicagoland area, like I'll try something with some hot chicken on it because I live in Tennessee now, so it's always good, and I try to introduce it to other people.
Very true. All right, brother. So you had the opportunity to watch Saturday night's pay-per-view. What was your favorite moment of that pay-per-view?
I mean, there were several. I'll probably keen on two. Definitely the pacing of the trios match of Edge, Sting, and Darby versus Christian, Nick Wayne, and Luchasaurus. It was definitely a good match. The pacing was good. The interaction with everybody was good. There weren't a lot of spot fests. Like it was just an actual good trios match. Tags in, tags out. The heels doing the heelish work. Even someone like the old man Flair getting involved in it was interesting. And then obviously I think my other favorite match was honestly the triple threat match of the TBS title with Sky Blue, Julia Hart, and Chris Statlander. It was definitely a fun match to watch. All the it was a slow burn, but once all women started just going after each other, that's when it turned up, and you're like, this is a really good match. So I would say those two moments were definitely some of my favorite moments from the pay-per-view.
I was really surprised on we had two title changes, last I was about to say last night because we're recording this, the day after. But on Saturday, having two title changes, both in the women's division, do you think this is the right direction for the women's division to have, both a new TBS champion and probably one of the most, and the other one that has probably the most over character in AEW right now?
I've said it before on this show, and I'll say it again. Toni Storm's Timeless character is one of my favorite characters she has done in her career. It's a rejuvenation. It's almost like how Chris Jericho rejuvenated his kind of tone with the Painmaker. Like when he introduced that character, his whole trajectory of his career like changed. But like I was very happy with Tony Storm winning because there's so many routes you can go with it now. There's a lot of unfinished stories with Tony Storm and that TBS or the women's title that you can go. You can add in more people into her little group. I mean, you've already added in Luther the Butler. Now you've got Maria May as this crazed, obsessed fan over her. I mean, obviously Hikaru Shida might want that rematch. Obviously, you still have Soraya in the wings with trying to finish her story with the breakup of Outcast and trying to get even with Tony. So you got so many stories with that. And as far as the women's TBS title goes, you and I were talking about it before we went live. I'm kind of happy they pulled the trigger on Julia Hart. And hopefully everybody watching this tonight saw the pay-per-view. If not, have read about the results. So hopefully, if not, apologize. But pulling the trigger on Julia Hart when the stove was hot was a right choice. Especially, I'm a big Chris Statlander mark. I was happy when she came back and she was injury free and she won the title from Jade. I was very happy. It was a good 6-month run. It was good. It was good for what it was. It was just getting stale a little bit for me. And I love Chris Statlander, but some of the time I felt like she didn't defend it a lot. She was in a lot of tag matches as the champion, and I was like, you need her to defend it a lot more, And so it was right because it was weird because through the whole night, House of Black was just not doing well. And then you get to Julia Hart and she wins. So now you kind of put a little more prestige back in the House of Black since they lost the trios titles. So I feel like this is the right direction where they need to go with both Julia Hart and the House of Black. So I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with that.
That was one thing that I was super ecstatic when I got back to the fire station last night. We had a car fire that we were on. Got back, I look at my phone. I'm like, Julia Hart won, and I feel like it was at perfect time. They caught lightning in a bottle with her witch character, and I'm just curious to see where the House of Black goes from here. Like, do they all become champions? Like, do you decorate that whole faction up, make them back into that unstoppable force?
Well, honestly, as much as I would have loved to see Brody and Malachi win the tag titles last night, I knew that wasn't going to happen. I kind of felt big because they just won them. I felt Big Bill and Ricky were going to retain, especially the momentum Ricky Starks has been having lately. And, I see the take on making Claudio still look strong against Buddy because Claudio might get back into that title picture, especially since I think his name was drawn for the new Continental tournament that they're doing in AEW. So you got to keep him strong for the tournament. So yeah, I do wish, and I love the Acclaim. I do wish that the House of Black would win back their trios titles. That way you could, maybe that's what they're building towards of the House of Black, finally reverting back to holding a lot of gold. Because you could just imagine that walkout of all four of them, like the three men with the trios titles around their necks, and then Julia Hart even hugging her TBS title or holding it like a little urn or whatever that, or like holding it in her arms like that. Like you can imagine. So I think this is a good route starting, especially with someone like Julia Hart, because she has transcended with her character change. And when we all remember her as the spiffy, cheerleader, and now she's this dark character, and it's great. It's a great ascent. So I think you could go so many great routes with the House of Black.
Yeah, like I said, I'm excited to see what happens with that because that's one thing that you could easily do with just some vignettes, some video packages with the House of Black. You show that they lost. You show them having to get in sync with the occult again. There's a lot of awesome ideas for that. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And then, of course, with classic, Tony Storm, another very, popular character right now. And I feel like they had to capitalize on it. Now, like you were saying, there's so many untold stories that you can go back and revisit. You have this stuff with Ruby and Soraya. That's going to be fun to see how they tackle that. And of course, there's probably a lot of hungry women in that division that want that title. I would even say maybe even a Chris Statlander. You build her up in a year and a half time. I think she could be the next, women's champion, or one that's, a little bit down the list that could be potentially the next, your next champion.
Well, and that's another thing with introducing this, story of Maria May as like this fan of Toni Storm. When she debuted on camera, she said, "I'm a huge Toni Storm fan." You have so many stories. It kind of reverts back to the whole obsessed fan thing that Mickie James did with Trish Stratus back in WWF or WWE. They had that story where Mickie was obsessed with Trish Stratus for a while, and it all culminated in their women's title match at WrestleMania with Mickie winning it, like from Trish. So I feel like this, and Maria May, if anybody hasn't watched a lot of her work, she's actually really good in the ring. She's not just a pretty face. She's really good in the ring. She puts in the work. You could go with that route too. And then, like I said, there's so many more people you could add to the stable of timeless Toni Storm. Not just the obsessed fan, not just the butler. Even RJ City was getting more involved. He's starting to become more involved in her like little warped world. You know what I mean? So it's like you keep adding these people, and you got stories galore in that.
That's what's been a lot of fun, because I've always loved the silent video packages during the commercials. I know a lot of fans have mixed opinions regarding that, but that's one thing that I always enjoyed seeing on a Dynamite or a Collision. It was something fresh, it was something new, and it was just a little bit of a way to keep Toni on your TV, and I think they did a good job of capitalizing on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I loved her little, like, during the matches when she would always look at the camera like, "We'll be right back." Like, and they would just throw it straight to the picture. And it was just like, they're just milking that. And I love it. I know they're backstage and they're going over the scripts for the show. And they're like, "And then Toni, you say it here, and then we'll tell them, hey, go to commercial right there." Like, it's so brilliant because they're utilizing her character in that fashion, and that's what I think is great. It's a different change from what we see on television with the the good lucha matches or the trios matches or some of the hardcore matches we see. Like, it's a nice little break in between some of those to get something like that that's just different.
Very true. And like I said, lately it's the little things that have helped AEW. And unfortunately now with what's happened this year with some of the damage stuff, they've had to go on damage control. But with the little things that they're tightening down, like, one of our favorite podcast, host, Bully Ray, says AEW needs to tighten some screws. And I feel like they've done a good job lately of doing that. Even just like last night with the main takeaways from the pay-per-view, I feel like they've done a great job.
Yeah, there's still some iffy stuff within AEW that could use fixing, and it's not just backstage stuff; it's on screen stuff, And I was reading articles about them, and one of the websites I read, even though I try to stay off the websites, but one of the websites, they do 3 things we love, 3 things we hate, and then winners and losers of this. And so one of the things that they said they hate is AEW refereeing, where I can kind of see where they were coming from, because last night watching that pay-per-view, I did notice some stuff. They did mention when Ric Flair started chopping at Christian Cage on the outside, they're saying the ref's right there. Why didn't they just call it disqualification? In my mind, I'm thinking, well, was Christian the legal man? If he's not the legal man, then Ric Flair can hit him all he wants. Right. At the time, Luchasaurus was the legal man. So if Christian's on the outside messing with Ric Flair and he's not the legal man in the match, in pro wrestling terms, it's fine. Like, in my views, that's just me growing up as a kid. Like, I've seen that many a times, how many times in old school WWE, like, or, between the Attitude and the Ruthless Aggression era, did we see referees watch guys like slam guys through tables on the outside, no disqualification? Mm-hmm. They do this all the time. And then another instance was Toni Storm used like a platter plate in her butt to do the little butt bump in the corner. Yeah. And it was in plain sight of Aubrey. And it's like, why didn't you call a DQ on that? Because I think what Aubrey was doing, and Toni actually was doing a good job at this too. She kept turning a little bit so that Aubrey wouldn't be able to see it hang out. Because it was very hard to keep it in their wardrobe was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I kind of see where some of the articles reading, but yeah, you're right. I think they've done a lot better with a lot of other stuff going on with backstage and all of that, and they've got the right leaders. They got the right locker room leaders back there. So I think
Yeah.
AEW is on the right trajectory when it comes to 2024.
Yeah, I think 2024 will be a better year. I think if we could put, putting all the drama that happened, locker room between wrestlers, putting that aside, I think 2024, if AEW can get that fan, love back, because the hardcore fans like you and I are still there. We're still enjoying the show day in, day out. But it's just how do we bring people back? And I think I was worried, and I thought Connor was going to rage quit. That's why I texted him, because I was worried about who this announcement person was going to be. And I'm like, because I don't know if you saw a spoiler review, but spoiler, so skip ahead 20 seconds from now. But we had Ronda Rousey debut in ROH, and I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I thought she was going to be the person they announced last night, but it wasn't. It was Will Ospreay. So
yeah, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and from my view, I can see where people are coming from on that, like Ring of Honor taping of seeing her. But my thing is, you still got eyes on your product. Like, she might not be a hot commodity like a lot, but her name is still her name, and she is who she is. And like people are saying, like, oh, they can have her, like she's washed up. These are people that watched her in WWE. Like they loved her in WWE, but then grew stale of her character. So they're like, okay, AEW can have her. She was terrible in WWE. But it's like, okay, but she's still a name. It's still her. And I feel like now she's starting to understand the business and start to respect it a little more. And although it's a little late, I think she's now starting to pay her dues, because it wasn't the first show she was on. She also did a show with Marina at like a Revolver show, I think it was. And then she did another match with them. She did another show, and then she was ROH tapings. And I think what it is also because of her free agency, she can work that schedule. And she wants to work with Marina Shafir because they're best friends. They grew up doing the MMA together. So they grew doing the MMA together. So I don't see it as a bad thing to let her. But my understanding is that she was there on a handshake deal only. There was no contract signed. It was a handshake deal. And I think it was just for that episode. So I don't know where the further discussion is on that, or if we're going to see her more. But that's just my take on it.
No worries. I loved having. The thing is, I've always been a huge fan of Ronda Rousey from her UFC days, and then now, if she is coming in AEW, I'm okay with that. Because if she's going to do almost kind of similar to your fair WCW champion, Adam, if she pays her dues, and she comes in and makes up for what happened in, her comments that she said, and kind of an apology to fans, I think this could work, having her in the women's division. I don't want her to have the championship right away, of course, but there's so many stories you can tell with her. There's stuff that she could do with Maria Shavir to help her out. So, I'm okay with having Ronda Rousey in AEW. Mark, how you doing, buddy? Welcome to our Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah, hey, so I didn't know what was going on. I got your. I was like, what's going on? I was like, what are we doing here? What's going on?
All right, so we are. So for those guys listening at home, we are recording today on a Sunday before Thanksgiving, and so we're doing a Thanksgiving special. So I'll ask some just some personal questions about wrestling here shortly. Kind of interviewing both you and Adam, and then Connor is going to be on here as well very shortly. But we were just talking about the pay-per-view last night and kind of some of the things that happened. Ronda Rousey, I thought was going to be the person announced last night, but it's Will Ospreay. So, and I think having Will Ospreay officially be All Elite is going to be a huge step in the right direction for AEW.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was so ecstatic to see that it was Will Ospreay, that he was the announcement last night. I cannot. I mean, Lane, you know this. When we said who are our top three, favorite wrestlers of all time, and I and Will Ospreay was my number 2. So yeah, so seeing Will coming to AEW, yeah, it's like you said, it's a step in the right direction, dude. I am so freaking excited to see him come, and I feel like he's gonna put the take a step in the right direction, right? Because it seems like AEW has for some reason the attendance and viewership numbers are down and whatnot, but I feel like Will Ospreay is gonna, he's gonna elevate that, right? And no pun intended from his theme song, but I think he's gonna elevate, AEW coming into this new direction in 2024, and yeah, I'm really excited for Will. I honestly, in my honest opinion, I thought it was gonna be Mercedes. But Will Ospreay is something that I'm not gonna be mad at either, and we could still get Mercedes, right? I mean, we can't roll that out just yet. So I mean, it could still be we could still get Mercedes, at the end of the year or possibly next year. But yeah, seeing I cannot tell you how excited I am to see Will. And I watched the media scrum with him, and he seems like he is, full go, like ready to go. And I can't wait to see what how Tony books him. I feel like Will Ospreay, he's gonna be one of these guys that's gonna he's gonna have all these. He's gonna provide a bunch of dream matches for us as the viewers, as fans. The same way that I feel like every time we get Kenny Omega with someone that we haven't seen with yet, Will Ospreay is going to do that as well. He's going to bring in so many dream matches, and it's going to be awesome to see him in AEW every single week. Yeah, I can't wait for it, man. Like I am like crazy ecstatic about it. I was talking to Connor about it last night, and I was like, awesome. Like I said, I felt like it was Mercedes, but Will Ospreay, he's gonna do wonders for AEW. I really felt that way.
Yeah,
I'm with Mark on this one because I was just thinking about it today too, about all these dream matches you can have with Will Ospreay, like you were saying, Mark. Especially now, like you got guys in there that he hasn't had matches with because they were in another promotion. I mean, imagine this: Adam Edge Copeland versus Will Ospreay. Like that's a dream. We've never seen that before, and it's a dream match, especially if it was like someone like. And he's not in a bad shape for his age and where he's at in his career, but Adam Copeland is in great shape, and he can still go. I feel like him and Ospreay can put on a solid 25-minute match because that's how great Adam Copeland has been with his body. I mean, so you imagine that kind of match. But yeah, I'm with Mark. I was okay with if it was either going to be Mercedes or Will Ospreay. You had these people saying, "Oh, it's going to be this person, it's going to be this person," and then someone wrote down in a comment like, "No matter who it is, it's going to be disappointment for AEW and their fans." I go, "Listen, stop." I go, "We're going to be happy for whoever it is because that person wants to be in that promotion. That person wants to wrestle in that promotion." You saw it from when Tony announced that the person that they signed has so much respect and gets along with everybody backstage in the locker room. And in my mind, I thought of two people, and they were Mercedes and it was Will. I said, those two, I guarantee you, both of those people get along perfectly with all those talents in the background, in the locker room. I wouldn't be upset with either one of those two signing with AEW right now. I was still a little shocked as Will Ospreay because I know he has a contract going on with New Japan that ends in like January or February or somewhere around there. But because Tony works and AEW works so well with New Japan Wrestling, I'm sure they worked something out where they're like, listen, if he doesn't want to do New Japan and he wants to wrestle for us, we're cool with it. If you guys are cool with it, if he can sign with us and still work with you guys on a contract, until it's over, and then he's officially with us after that. I'm sure they worked it out perfectly.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking about too. Was that because we got Daniel Bryan going over there. He's gonna wrestle Okada, in January. So yeah, it goes to that point that they have a good relationship, right? So like they're like, yeah, we can, we'll let you tamper, right? But it's allowed, right? Because they're like, because we have it's like you said, they have a good relationship, so they can talk to one another and say, okay, yeah, and we're giving you Bryan Danielson, in January. Let me talk to Will Ospreay, type of deal, right? And then and it gets worked out, and I'm sure that that's going to be. I think that well, obviously, we got New Japan and AEW. They do a pay-per-view every year, so they have a good relationship, and yeah, this is just another stepping stone for them, being really cool with each other. And I feel like, and that's something for Tony Khan, right? That he has, right? That he has that pull, that he can do that with these guys, that with New Japan. I mean, to have that relationship, to be able to pull guys and talk to guys and sign people, that just goes to Tony Khan's like character, like him being the guy that he is. He gets a whole bunch of shit, for being, for whatever reasons, right? Like, all these WWE people will freaking hate him for whatever reasons, but he has such a good relationship with everybody, because he's I think he's a genuinely good guy. Like, everybody seems like, have you ever heard a wrestler talk bad about Tony Khan? Like, Daniel Bryan, like he's out there just saying like how much he loves Tony Khan, and and Daniel Bryan's up there in creative now, like setting storylines, and Daniel Bryan loves that. That's why he's gonna stick around even after he retires, because he has he has that relationship, and he knows how cool Tony Khan is. That he's such a relatable guy. Like, he's not like this big like Vince McMahon character that I have to get a meeting with him like 6 months in advance to talk to him for 10 seconds. Like, no, you can approach him and he'll talk to you and he'll listen, right? Like, that's what I've heard from like most wrestlers, is that he'll listen, he'll listen to your story, listen to what you want to do. And I just can't say enough about like Tony Khan, and the fact that that he has that relationship with I forgot the owner of New Japan, but he has a good relationship with him. They're able to do that.
Yeah,
it's Gato. Mm-hmm.
Gato, yep.
Yeah, but he has, like you said, but you're saying he has a really good relationship. You're right. Even with Scott D'Amore too, because Steve, Ospreay's on still on Impact's roster, TNA.
And that's another thing too. It's like you look at promotions. Like I said, I have nothing against WWE, but the problem with WWE is because it's such a big corporate conglomerate, like of a corporation, especially under that new umbrella of TKO. Like, they have their own certain way of running things that you don't see them working co-promotions with other wrestling promotions. It'll never happen. It's never happened. It hasn't happened since Vince McMahon bought the company and kind of faded out all the smaller promotions. You don't see WWE. The only exception I can think of is when they asked Impact if Mickie James can come over to do the Royal Rumble. Yeah, right. And Impact's only thing was, as long as she can still wear that Impact Knockouts title, that's fine. And they allowed her to do it. But since then, they really don't have a working relationship with a lot of promotions as much as Tony Khan does with both New Japan and Impact. That's the business that I love in the sports entertainment pro wrestling industry, is when you get promotions that work together. You saw it a little bit in the 90s when Vince McMahon was willing to give ECW a chance to kind of shine on WWF programming, but you don't see it much anymore, and it's really nice to see talent cross over other promotions and actually work with people that they love working with. How many interviews do we have here on this show with pro wrestlers say, I'm friends with everybody. I love working with these people, and being in the locker room here, there's no difference in the locker room. We all get along. You don't see that a lot with WWE, like, especially when the latter years under Vince McMahon, like, you read articles, it's like, oh, the moral's down because nobody likes working under Vince anymore. It's bad. He's ruining it. He's ruining the product, but with Hunter, I think you may see some opening a little bit to being open to working with other promotions. But you won't see it 100% like you do in AEW with Tony and Scott D'Amore and Ito and New Japan. You don't see that. Like, and even with AAA, I mean, he's got a great relationship. I mean, how many times do we see El Vikingo?
Like,
on TV. El Hijo, we see him. We see all the AAA wrestlers on AEW. So Tony understands the business of pro wrestling. He's like, I want to give these guys shot. I mean, what about that episode where we saw Sky Blue wrestle Hollywood Haley J from OVW? That's the respect that Al Snow gets as an owner and a trainer at a company like that in a small town in like a town in Louisville, at a small place. Like, Tony understands the business, and he is literally like, I don't get the hate for him like Mark was saying, but I understand he's a little edgy and maybe he should hold stuff in and not be too much like, we do this better than this. But like, look, Tony, don't say it, just do it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to convince us or tell us like, oh, well, WWE does this, but we do it better than them. Or, you mentioned WWE on TV a lot. It's like, just do your thing. You don't have to mention any other company. Just do your thing and just keep rolling. That's why I said, Lane, that I have good feelings with everything that happened at Full Gear. Should be set as the right path to where AEW goes for 2024. It all now relies on Tony to take that and roll with it and understand in 2024, if he sits back and think about it, he goes, I'm doing really well with this company. We're going to have a good 2024. Let me reassess what I'm doing as the owner. Like Mark said, bringing in Daniel Bryan as creative, like, you're getting the help now. Now you're going to get some good stories. Now you're going to get some good matches. So just roll with that.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good to have somebody like Daniel Bryan, right? Like, I mean, like, think about it. Like, Daniel Bryan has been in the business for so long. He understands what stories can do, because we want to see that, right? We want to see more storylines. And Tony's so good at like making these matches, right? But then it's also to the point where we want to see some good storylines too. Like, we love seeing, I love seeing these one-off matches, but we also want to see some stories, right? I mean, that's what got us into wrestling in the first place. And Tony would agree with me on that we got to see some storylines. And I feel like, Daniel Bryan coming in there, he's going to provide that, right? He's going to know how to direct a storyline. And even MJF, right? I've heard that MJF is helping out with creative as well, that he's talking, to Tony and to the wrestlers on figuring out these directions for creative stories and creating these storylines. And I feel like that they're going in the right direction, right? Like, I feel like both of them, MJF, Dan Bryan. I mean, I know there's other people behind the scenes as well. But Daniel Bryan, I just feel like he has like this such creative mind that he knows exactly like what to do as far as like these storylines are going to go. And that's why I'm super happy that he is in AEW, because he wouldn't get that, right? Like, he wouldn't get that in WWE. Like, but I think that's what kind of persuaded him to go to AEW. I'm sure that, Tony said, hey, you're going to come and wrestle, and I'm going to let you go and wrestle in New Japan. I'm going to let you wrestle like wherever you want to. And you're going to have a hand in creative, and how would you not say yes to that? Almost getting the same money, if not the same exact money that you were getting from WWE. Like, I mean, it just made perfect sense for Daniel Bryan to do that, to come over here. And man, I'm telling you, I feel like, even when Daniel Bryan's done, like, he's still going to be, backstage. And he was coaching Jade Cargill too. Like, she got better because he was out there coaching her. Right. And she ducked out. Right. She ducked out. And now, like, WWE is like, wait, she's not there. Like, so he was trying to coach her up to be a good wrestler, and she's not there yet. That's why she's not on WWE TV yet, because they're like, well, we signed her, but she's not there yet. But Daniel Bryan was getting there. Like, he was coaching her, and she was getting better while he was coaching her. Right? Like, she was getting better every single week. And that's why I understand like why she left, I guess. I mean, but to have somebody like Daniel Bryan coaching you every single one, that's your dream. Like, who's gonna go, who coaches them in that warehouse in NXT? Like, who's over there coaching them? Like, I mean, but no, there's nobody on Daniel Bryan's level that's coaching them. And I just felt like she could have done more by getting better by having Daniel Bryan coach her, because Daniel Bryan's like one of the best in the business. I mean, I just can't say enough about Daniel Bryan, how much I freaking love him. And he's such an underrated signing for AEW.
Very true. So now had a great pay-per-view. What was your guys' biggest before we go on to our next topic for the night? What was your biggest takeaway from the pay-per-view, Adam?
Biggest takeaway, I think for me, the one thing I can think of with biggest takeaway is moving forward with new stories. Obviously, we get that with the women title changes. You can move stories forward. Something with the Hangman and Swerve story. Everyone thought, okay, well, Hangman's going to win the Texas Death Match. He's never lost one. He'll beat Swerve. They'll be 1-1. They'll have one more crazy match, and then that's it. But now you get Swerve winning 2 in a row. So now you could build Swerve up to maybe even challenge for the world title, even though you've got a very crowded world title picture, with MJF being challenged by Joe, and then you got Wardlow attacking him, and then you got this person, the Devil Mask character, involved in the story. But I think from my takeaway from the pay-per-view is let's move forward with some good stories now and not overcrowd a lot of the stories. It's good to get people involved in stories. It's good to get, your talent on screen, and it's good to have those 3 shows, having Dynamite, having Rampage, and having Collision. You got 3 shows now you can tell stories on. Utilize that. Don't just tell them all the same story on every show at the same time. How many times do we see Blackpool Combat Club tell the same story on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision?
Right.
They're always involved in something on all 3 of those shows. It's like, listen, you got a very talented roster there. Start utilizing some of them. Start developing new stories. I still love some of the lucha matches they have on, the AAA matches they put on. The women, some of the women's matches are getting a lot better. They're getting more time to put these women matches in and actually tell stories with these women matches. We said it, Lane, like about that triple threat match for the TBS title. There's a story still there with Sky and Julia, and Chris was kind of caught in the middle of that. Do they give Chris, and you said it, Lane, do they give Chris the buildup to possibly challenge for the women's title, or do she win back the TBS title, but my thing is stories. Mark said it, we love stories in pro wrestling, but tell good stories. Just don't overcrowd them. Last night was a good start for it because you're culminating in that match between Adam Copeland and Christian. You're culminating into a story of who Sting's last match is going to be at Revolution in 2024. You're culminating in, well, MJF just beat Jay White. Who's his next challenger? Is it Joe? Is Adam Cole turning? You got that story. So it's just more so progressing the stories instead of recycling everything every week on your shows and doing the same thing over and over and over. Change it up a bit. I'd like to see more character changes in a lot of people. I like to see them build up on those stories. Give me a reason why this person is challenging this person. Don't just push it together. Explain why these guys are in that Continental tournament. Explain why, do all this stuff. Explain it to me. I don't want to be left confused, So I say from this, what I take away from the pay-per-view is have stories progressing forward that make sense and that are good storytelling.
Give me with that tournament, give me video packages. Every wrestler put something on YouTube. Use your socials. Give me, why should I care about this individual winning the belt? So I'm all for, like, your point where it's a huge story base now, where it feels like there's been a good shift and a good momentum. And I'm ready for Wednesday night to watch Dynamite to see what happens because of it. I may have not watched the pay-per-view, but from what I've seen, I'm excited. Mark, what about you? With the stories that kind of left off last night from Dynamite, what was your biggest takeaway from the show?
Man, going off of Adams, what he just said, yeah, everything what Adam said was just like right on point. Like I can't say enough like how much I just want to reiterate what he just said. That was perfect. Like yes, like let's get more stories but like you said, the right stories. I can't say that enough. And I'll just say what Hangman and Swerve did, what they did between their promos and that match last night was freaking incredible. What Swerve did, I mean, I cannot tell you enough how much that was. And I said this on the prediction show was that was a match that I was looking forward to, and that it was going to be like the steal of the show, right? Like it was gonna be the standout of the show, and it was everything that I predicted. Like I said that it was gonna be like it was one thing that I was looking forward to, and that I felt like it was gonna steal the show, and it absolutely did that. So for me, um, it was Swerve. I just feel like Swerve has just like taken over, and he has just cemented himself as a main event talent. You know, the fact, and I've said this before, that Hangman and Swerve doing this, and they had all of our attention, and doing this without a title, right? They're doing this without a title. That's what main eventers do. That's what you can do when you are a main event talent. You can elevate yourself to be that top dog without a belt. When you can do that without a belt, without mentioning any type of title, and they did what they did, like that's what main eventers do. Like you could, that's I mean, I can't go on they're not going to be on the Stone Cold Rock level, but that's what Stone Cold and Rock could do, right? Like they didn't need a title. If they fought, like you wanted, you were interested in the promos, you were interested in the match, like it was everything, and you didn't need a belt. But most of the time they were fighting for the belt. But this is what I felt like Swerve and Hangman did. I felt like they elevated themselves, but I mean, but to the point where, yeah, like they were just, you can just tell, like this is main event shit. Like, I mean, Swerve has now put himself in that main event stratus. Like everybody has been saying that he needed the push, but I felt like this match last night, and this is what I'm going to say is what I took away from it, is that Swerve he cemented himself as a main event star last night. Him being so freaking bloodied, and he stapled himself. He literally got a freaking staple gun and stapled himself. And I was watching it this morning where they were pulling out the staples from his body. Like that is in freaking insane. And I just can't say enough how much Swerve to me stole the show last night. Like he did what I thought he could do, and to me, like I feel like yes, going forward, like I mean, well, to take away from what I from watching the show last night was that Swerve was the main event. Like he and Hangman just tore the house down. It was awesome. Yeah, that's my takeaway is that Swerve is the man. Like he is going to get that push, and I cannot wait for that in 2024 because he's going to be that guy going in 2024.
And a lot of people right now are talking on socials that this could be his kicking off point to winning the world championship.
Yeah.
You defeated one of the biggest babyface world champions we've had in the history of the company. So this could be his kicking off point. So that's one that I've gathered from it. And the other thing that I'm very curious to see what's going to happen is what's going to happen between the Elite and the Golden, the whole Golden Jet, storyline. Because I know Adam were talking off air about how good the Young Bucks are being heels. Does Kenny turn on Jericho? Like, how long is the Golden Elite or the Golden Jets going to last? And then will you go back to the Elite and do the Golden Elite? So there's a lot of curiosity and fun stories I think that are going to come out of this pay-per-view. And unfortunately, we are pre-recording this, so we haven't seen what happened yesterday on Dynamite, but it makes me really excited to watch, see what happens on Wednesday for sure.
Yeah, and I was going to follow up with Mark on that Swerve Page match. That is in my top 3 matches from last night. It was by far probably one of the best hardcore / death matches I've ever seen. And I don't like death matches. I love hardcore matches, and that combined both of them, but it also intertwined storytelling. And I love that both men put their heart and soul in that match. I mean, obviously, you've seen Swerve do matches like that before in Lucha Underground. He's done matches like that hardcore in Lucha Underground as Killshot, and him and then you've seen Page do so many Texas Death matches that you're like, both of these guys with what they both do with those matches, they will put on a show, and it was really good. It was bloody. There was storytelling. There was emotion there because not a single person in that crowd was sitting during that entire match. Everyone was standing. You couldn't sit. You had to watch. You were on your feet. Two, this I do see propel Swerve into possibly winning a singles title in 2024. Don't know if it's the world title, but I can see him as a TNT champ, international champion. I can see him as the continental champion. I can see him win an individual a title, a singles belt next year. Actually, I'd love to see him revisit that story with Keith Lee, because that story was going somewhere and they killed it and it shot down. And then 3 on that match, that story and that match and that rivalry might be the best one Hangman Page has been in a long time. And I'm saying that even more so than his and Kenny Omega's story. I think it trumps his and Kenny Omega's story arc of when he took the title from Kenny. I think this one beats it because there's so much layer, and a lot of people wanted to see something different from Page. They wanted to see something different from Hangman Page. They didn't want to technically see him get, re-vaulted into the world title picture because there's so much stuff crowded in that picture already. But this was just such a good story for Hangman Page. I mean, it really dig deep because you look at the stories and the promos of Swerve and Prince Nana invading his home. His personal life is being brought into this. Obviously his life was brought into a lot of promos, but you never saw people invade his house. You never saw him question his manhood, what happened to him as a talent. Swerve's character really brought the best out of Hangman Page in this storyline. And I honestly think they go one more match because I think there's so much more story to it if they do one more match. Unless they say, they're saying, well, this is going to suck. If they do one more match and Page beats Swerve, what was the point of Swerve's first 2 wins? We talk about booking on these shows and people talk about 50-50 booking. And if Page would have won last night, that's 50-50 booking. But because Swerve won and nobody thought he was going to win it, because Page never loses Texas Death matches. But when Swerve won, even I was sitting there going, wow. I go, they let Swerve go 2-0 on Hangman Page right now. I said, there's something with Swerve that, he's supposed to be a heel, yet I'm loving the shit out of his character right now. So, I mean.
And I said this too, Adam, was that, I predicted that Hangman was going to win, right? And it was going to be 1-1. And then they were going to do the third one, at World's End. I did not see Swerve winning this match, but I also said that this is just the beginning for Swerve and Hangman. This is going to go on for a really long time, and I cannot wait for one of them to have a title. And we're gonna come back to this. I don't know if it's going to be, 2024, 2025. I'm not too sure, but this is they're going to come back to one another. Like, I feel like this is Batman and Joker, right? Like, this is like they're gonna come back. I feel like they're destined to do this for a really long time, right? When Joker said, we're destined to do this forever. I feel like this is what they are. Like, they just click with one another. Their promos, the home invasion, like you said, the home invasion, and then Hangman's promo, calling out Hangman and telling him that his fiance left him and his kids don't talk to him. Like, oh my God, like that, and you could just see like Swerve, like his eyes were just like fireballs, like he wanted to kill, and calling him out on that, and he got what he wanted to do, last night. And like I said, I just feel like these guys are going to do this for like a really long time. Like, this is just the beginning for them. Like you said, they're going to do another match. No, they're going to do several more. Like this is going to be something that's going to go on for a really long time, and I cannot wait because I feel like it's going to be once one of them wins a title, and then it's going to come back, and they're going to get back into this whole thing that they were doing because you cannot just ditch this. I mean, you can ditch this right now, but
I guess Mark's ditching the show.
Yeah.
My bad, guys. Yeah, so you can you can ditch this right now, but like I said, this is something that's going to go on for many months to come. I mean, I feel like these guys are just they click so well. Like these promos, the home invasion thing, like everything, and then they're so good in the ring together as well. Like you cannot knock that as well because they are so like, man, I can't even. I'm trying to figure out like intertwined, right? Like they're so like I feel like they're so connected. Each one of them, like they can just like because like you said, Adam, like not even Hangman's thing with Kenny was I won't even I'll say this, it wasn't even nearly as good as what he's been doing with Swerve. And I don't know if it's Swerve or what, but there's just something about them that I freaking love that I cannot get enough of what they're doing. And yeah, I mean, Heyman had said that this was that yesterday was supposed to be the be all end all for that feud, right? But I mean, that was thinking that he was going to win, and he was thinking that so if he loses, I mean, so since he lost, maybe it'll continue. Maybe they do another one at World's End. I mean, I don't know, but I know that this can't be the be all end all of this story. This is going to continue. I know they have to continue this in some way or another. If it's not now, it might be a little bit later on, but they will continue the story. They have to.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Swerve and Hangman. If you continue that going together, even if they say that was the last match, that was the end of their feud, you have probably the biggest heel in wrestling right now, besides Roman Reigns. Like I feel like Swerve has taken that mantle that MJF had, last year and the year before. So having that, and then having Hangman be, having him be, back to his babyface level. Like I feel like he got reheated and brought back up to where he was with Kenny. This brought out the best in both stars. It brought out the worst in Swerve and brought out the best in Hangman. So I'm excited to see where that goes. So that was a lot of fun. Great pay-per-view for sure. I cannot wait to go actually and watch it because everything that I've seen, clips and reports, it looked like it was an awesome, good time. All right, guys. So we're going to do a little fun Thanksgiving part of our episode now. We're going to do a special, okay? So we're going to each kind of go through, kind of share some of our personal feelings with wrestling from our past to some of the things that how it helped us get out of some terrible things in life, and then where wrestling is at today and why we're thankful for it. So, Adam, when you first started wrestling, what wrestler and match or combination got you into wrestling? What made you love the sport of professional wrestling to where it grew you into the person you are today?
Man, that's a good question. Because I grew up in a crazy time of wrestling because it was Monday Night Wars. It was the rise of ECW. There's just so much fun wrestling to watch. I wouldn't say there's like one specific wrestler that kind of got me for the love of wrestling. I mean, obviously everyone growing up in the 80s, 90s had the Hulk Hogan and all this stuff, and the Bret Harts and the Shawn Michaels. Obviously everyone knows my favorite mid-card wrestler was Owen Hart. But there's just something about again, we bring it back to its stories. It was just the characters kind of connected with me. I'm like, I knew at the time that for me as a kid, they felt real to me. As I got older and realized it's scripted, I'm like, it's fine because it's still fun to watch. And it's something that takes you away from reality. Kind of like something you can enjoy. You could be having the worst day. If you go home and watch like a wrestling show, pro wrestling show, and you watch how beyond bonkers this whole stuff is, whether it be like crazy matches or like crazy characters. You're just like, oh man, this is funny. Like I can't be down anymore. Like that was me growing up as a kid. I just, in my young years, even in my teens, like I enjoyed some of the pro wrestling. Like I said, I stopped watching for a while, but even then, like watching pro wrestling as a growing up as a kid, like I just like, and for me, all it was for me growing up was sports, school, like fun holidays, family, and then pro wrestling a little bit, like games. Like that was me growing up. Like I was a nerd growing up with all that stuff. So with pro wrestling growing up as a kid, like it was great because you got to see the I can't even think of the word. You got to see the product. Thank you. I thought of the P word. You saw the product kind of grow over the years growing up. I got to see the Monday Night Wars and rise of ECW to, the closure of two companies in WWE becoming this global thing, to Impact doing TNA stuff, to AEW becoming something. Like I got to see different wrestlers come and go. You hear headlines or see news or even see it in view of pro wrestlers passing away, pro wrestlers having kids, pro wrestlers getting married. Like you're just like, these are actual real people. Like they have the same lives as the rest of us. They come on TV and they entertain us. So it's just a nice little thing. So I wouldn't say per se, to answer your questions, there's not one match, one wrestler, one promotion that kind of like changed me. It's the whole product as a view, because I grew up wrestling, doing amateur wrestling, and actually junior high, my eighth grade year, our class, we do like all the votes, like most likely to be a business person, most likely to be a firefighter, most likely to, run a something, my whole school, my whole class voted me because they knew I was a wrestler and I was into wrestling. They voted me most likely to become a pro wrestler. And so it was really funny. And because, me and my friends, like we were into pro wrestling, we would stay up late. We'd watch the pay-per-views. I'd beg my mom to order them for me. I'd watch the Raws. I'd watch the SmackDowns. I'd watch the ECWs. I mean, I grew up on it. I'm a nerd, But I think that's why I have so much knowledge of it, is because I'm a nerd and I love the history of it, because it's such an interesting history of the sport. Because we talk about golden ages of wrestling, like the 50s, 40s, and 50s. And, then you get the character-driven stuff in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then you get all these different style of, like promotions, So, yeah, so that pretty much answers the question, is that it's not that, it's just the overall product of professional wrestling that kind of just intrigued me.
And that's one thing that as you, as an individual, grow, you also see like your favorite wrestlers, your favorite, promotion. You also see that grow and establish, and you see that change as you're changing too. I know for me, like I didn't start watching wrestling until I was a teenager. I was in middle school at the time when I started watching wrestling, and to see, how some of these wrestlers would be put through the absolute ringer, and to see how they would handle the situations made me realize, yeah, I know that this is all, they all know the outcome to who's going to win the match, but it all became part of like, hey, like it's more of a story, became of the moment, became fun, it was sad. There were so many emotions going into it that made, going through puberty and going through being bullied and depression. Like it literally was a great way to, how I changed was because of professional wrestling. It made me like say, hey, like I should look at maybe approaching my, situations in a different way, because that's how some of the wrestlers did it. Mark, for you, what was your experience with wrestling? With getting into it, and then kind of how it helped you grow. Like how did that all start for you?
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So my dad, so my parents loved wrestling. So this was really good. My mom was a huge fan of the Von Erichs, and she would talk about them all the time, and she would usually cry when she talked about them. But she loved the Von Erichs. The Von Erichs were actually how she got into, well, how my dad got her into wrestling. So she talks about this story a lot, how my dad loved wrestling, right? And then my dad would like watch it on TV, and then my mom, she was like, she was like, I don't get it, I don't like it, I don't like it watching it, I don't like watching it. And my dad said, I'm gonna take you to a live show. So then she got, he took my mom to a live show, and they got to see the Von Erichs here in my hometown. They took, and she fell in love with wrestling and the Von Erichs. And so they loved wrestling. So they loved wrestling, and that's how I got into wrestling as a kid. I'll just say this: my dad got like this illegal box, and we got to see like all the pay-per-views, right? Like there were some illegal channels. I'll just say, and so I got to watch all the pay-per-views, and I think that was like the main thing, was like being able to watch pay-per-views. And I think the first person, I think my first wrestler that I fell in love with was Shawn Michaels. And I will tell you this, as a kid, when he beat Bret Hart, I think it was in '97. I'm not too sure which one it was, but it was that one where he came down off of the streamline. And I think it was that one that he beat Bret Hart for the title, and I cried. I'm gonna tell you this. I legit freaking cried when he won. I was so happy that he won, and I think he was the one that made me fall in love with wrestling, and I was hooked. Right, like at that point, like I could not get enough of wrestling. And then this happened, and this was kind of the transition of the Monday Night Wars that was going on. Like that was my childhood, like to where I was watching Monday Night Raw, and then but still watching Nitro, and I was like trying to figure out, because Nitro was live, right, and then Raw was taped, and I don't know if you remember that the Nitro was doing spoilers for freaking Raw. They were saying like, oh, you're gonna watch Monday Night Raw. Well, I could tell you I forgot who was saying that. Who was saying that who won, the main event or whatever, and it was just like, what the hell, like, and then the thing that happened with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash when they left WWE and they showed up on Nitro, that was like the coolest thing for me. And when Hogan turned, like, I'm telling you, like that was like probably the highlight of my childhood was that. Because I loved it. I loved every second of it. Like watching that stuff as a kid, like that it just blew my mind. I love, and I think that till this day, right? Like I feel like I would love to see some more of that. Some of these characters, nowadays we don't get many surprises, right? Because of all these journalists or whatever, and Twitter, that you pretty much can see everything that happens before it happens, which kind of sucks because it kind of spoils the surprises. But yeah, seeing all that, like that was my thing. Like that's what I love to watch, and I just wanted to watch wrestling. Like that was my thing. Like I just wanted to watch wrestling. I don't know how much it shaped my childhood or my adulthood, but like I said, like I'm still a fucking nerd about it. Like I'm still a nerd about it, obviously. And AEW was the one that got me like that, because I ducked out. I ducked out for a good, like, I don't know, probably 10 years, maybe 8 to 10 years. I think I ducked out of watching wrestling when it was just WWE, and it just kind of got stale and boring. I wasn't interested. And I think that was like in, I don't know, 2009, maybe 2008, where I just stopped watching. I don't know, I guess I don't want to say I had a life, but but I just felt like I didn't need to watch wrestling anymore. I just kind of got stale of it, and it wasn't until like when I heard about AEW, I felt like it was something new, right? Something different, and that's when I started, and that's when I got right back into it. When they started, I was so interested in AEW and a new style of wrestling, right? Because I just felt like it was just too much talking with WWE, that you weren't seeing wrestling. Like, I mean, I know that back then there was good storylines, right? I mean, there was always The Rock and Stone Cold. They were talking crap to each other, but there was good wrestling. There was good wrestling, and I felt like at some point in time it got lost in transition. There was a point in time where I didn't feel it, right? Like I just didn't feel it anymore as a fan, and I loved wrestling. Like I tell you, like I mean, when I was watching as a kid, I loved wrestling, and I never lost it. I never lost my love of wrestling. I always loved wrestling. I just didn't love what the product was at the time, and I think I was just begging for something different. And I think that's what AEW did for me. They brought something different, and I couldn't tell you enough how much I loved what they brought into the wrestling world. And that's why I'm an AEW lifer, man. Like I'm gonna love AEW till the day I die. Like I'm not going anywhere. This is I'm always gonna watch it. I don't care what anybody says. This product could go and have 0 viewers on whatever they on the Nielsen viewership thing. I'm still gonna watch it. I'll be the one viewer if there's no viewers. I'm an AEW lifer, just because of what they did for me as a grown up, right? Because as a grown man, like they got me back into, they hooked me back in when I thought that I was done with it. Like I was like, I'm not gonna watch this shit, because I mean, there's girls and stuff, and you have to like be dating a girl for a while before you can tell her I like to watch wrestling. You don't ever like put that shit out like right away. Like you have to be like, I'm doing something on Monday or Friday nights, right? And you couldn't tell her that you were into wrestling because, she might not ever talk to you ever again because she's like, you're a fucking wrestling nerd. But I am, right? And so I had to like tiptoe around that stuff where I would like eventually make them fall in love with me. And then I'd be like, oh, hey, by the way, I love wrestling. But I mean, that's why that's my little storyline of wrestling and where I'm at now, I guess.
So to go off of going off what Mark said, 2 things from what he brought up was, I mean, I remember when he's saying about back then they had good matches. I mean, if you think back to the old days, Mark, like, and even Lane, maybe if you've watched some old matches, have you ever noticed a lot of the men's matches in old school, like WWF, WC, well, more so the old school, like Attitude Era WWF matches were going 20 to 30 minutes. And then they have a lot of Iron Man matches. Those were huge, the hour matches. You don't see that a lot in a lot of pro wrestling anymore. No. Like they'll have them occasionally. Now they're known as gimmicky matches. Now they're just matches that they just put on there. And then back then you look at the women's wrestling when the divas or whatever the good looking women were coming up, their matches were like nightgown matches, brown pants. And then when they got on the divas age, their matches are like 5-10 minutes, barely. Now women's wrestling is getting a chance. Now you got many women promotion back, wrestling promotions out there, and it all stems from Glow. Glow was the one that kind of launched it all, was women promotions, and so I think you saw big growth in that too. And then too, like he said, with the whole journalism thing and everything like that today, the one thing I will take positively from like wrestling websites and all that are live updates, because nowadays you got people who are like, I can't watch the show, but I want to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. They do it the same thing in other sports. They'll like ESPN, they'll update you on stuff like the draft. They'll tell you, hey, this is going on in the draft. If you can't watch the NFL draft or the NBA draft, hey, this is the next pick. This is what they need. Like, and they'll write and like, this team picks this. This is the takeaway from this player. That's what wrestling websites are doing now. Like, if you can't watch the show, like last night on the pay-per-view, if you can't watch it, websites will have updates. Like, they'll give you the whole match detail, and they'll tell you who wins. They'll tell you segments. So I will say that's the only positive thing I will take away from pro wrestling websites and these journalists today, is that they'll still keep you updated on shows when they're actually happening, live updates, which is the good thing. Because back then you didn't have a lot of those guys. The only really writer you had back there was Meltzer. Dave Meltzer was literally the only like big time journalist back in the early days of pro wrestling. And now he's just the most hated journalist in the world in pro wrestling. So But like that, I fully understand where Mark was coming on with those 2 points. So I just wanted to tail off on that.
No, that was beautiful. Both of you guys, like, excuse me, I'm so sorry. That was very beautiful, guys. You know, and I'm looking at it now. It's like looking at my future wife, right? Using her as an example. So she never watched wrestling, could not get into it. When I told her, hey, you know, I'm watching wrestling tonight. You know, I'm sorry we can't hang out. She's like, oh, I want to watch. I'm like, okay, sure, come on over. And then as she started seeing, hey, that who's this Cody Rhodes guy? And then like looking him up on, you know, Instagram and seeing, oh, he's got a cute dog. And next thing you know, she's, you know, falling in love with Preston Vance, you know, when he was in Dark Order. And just she started finding her own ways why she loved wrestling. And, you know, fortunately my family, like my whole family, I'm pretty much the only one that likes wrestling. It's me and my fiance now. My little brother watched it for a stint, but then never got into it like I did. And with AEW, I was almost about to give up on wrestling. If it wasn't for AEW and the independent scene, I probably would have given up on it. But now I'm looking at it, you know, AEW has brought me some great friends in my life, both Adam, Mark, Connor, and the rest of the AEW gang. Like, they all mean something special to me. We're not just podcast hosts, we're friends. Like, we talk hours and hours just on wrestling in a group chat or, you know, talking on and off air. You know, we have a great relationship with that. You know, going to the shows, how many people have we met that love and are very enthusiastic? You know, it makes me, you know, ignore all the hate that's online, whether for both companies. Like I said, to see how wrestling has brings people together, you don't see that a lot with a lot of fandoms.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's so true. I mean, yeah, because I mean, I was just thinking about it. Like, I was thinking about it last night. How your point to where we're friends, man. Like, we like, you know, I can text you guys. I can, you know, message you whenever I want. You know, and because to your point, we talk hours on end about wrestling. Like, imagine if we were just hanging out and had, you know, went to go have drinks and have dinner, right? We could just shoot the shit, and we can always do like something where we can talk like just about like life and shit, right? Like that's why, like, you guys, yeah, like to your point, Lane, like we're friends. Like, I consider you guys my friends. And like, again, I was just thinking about it, how yes, like, you guys are my friends. Like, I and it's so cool because we have this relationship with wrestling, right? And it's something that's not so subtle, right? Like wrestling is something that it's not few and far between, but it is something that's it's a deeper delve into like our personal lives and you know what we truly like, and for us to be able to talk about this stuff, because we're not casual viewers, right? We're actual like hardcore freaking fans. And when you're like that with other with my other co-hosts that you guys are, like, that's something that's really deep and personal. Like I said, you know, I couldn't tell a girl that I was dating like right away like I like to watch wrestling. You know, I would save that shit for like, you know, 6 months or a year in, right? Like, I'm gonna make sure she falls in love with me before I tell her that shit.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's like really deep and personal. And man, Lane, I can't tell you enough like how cool that is that that your fiance, you know, that she's into it. And I remember she kind of like was on one of the podcasts the one time that she kind of. And it was awesome. I was like, man, she needs to be on. I think I told you, like, she needs to be on more. Like, we need to get her on the show, you know, more often.
That's a work in progress. I'm trying.
Yeah. And,
yeah.
You know, the female, I want, you know, the female perspective is always going to be great to have, because I love, you know, hearing that female perspective of not only wrestling in general, but also the women's wrestling, right? Because I mean, as guys, we have this certain perspective and whatnot, but yeah, but having that female, and I loved when she was on the show. Like, it was so cool because she had these different ideas, she had different views, and it was like, yeah, you're kind of like stepping outside of the box with that. And but yeah, but I love that we are like, we are a group. We are, to me, like, we're really good friends. Like I love every one of you guys, because I feel like y'all bring a certain joy in my life talking about this stuff, because we shit gets dark and personal, to where shit that we don't want to talk about, right? And like this, I've told Connor this, that I'm so happy to be a part of this group, because this is the one part of my life that where I get to just talk about something that I love, right? Like I get to talk about cool shit. I get to talk about wrestling, whether it's old, WWE, WWF stuff, and then doing live reactions for AEW. But I get to talk about it with people that enjoy it the same way I do, and it's a very it's so cool, man. Like I love it. Like I can't tell y'all enough how much I respect every single one of y'all and every single one of y'all's views. And yes, I cannot wait. I'm hoping that one day, right? One day we all get to sit down and just hang out and drink some beers together and eat some chicken wings. Right? Like
Yeah.
that would be my dream. Like if I won the lottery, like I would say, I'm gonna fly everybody out, and we're gonna. I would fly every single one of y'all to like Vegas or something, and we're just gonna go and hang out and go bar hopping and eat wings and drink beer and just shoot the shit and talk wrestling and not even and talk about just regular stuff. Like that would be my dream.
It's funny because Lane, my perspective on the whole wrestling community, and it's so funny because it's like when you go to these wrestling conventions, you notice it doesn't matter what promotion these wrestlers came from. They're all hanging out with each other because they love what they're doing. They love the product they're putting out, and there's no toxicity amongst them. Is there drama amongst them? Maybe there's some wrestlers out there that do cause drama. There's some wrestlers out there that it's all about them. But when you get them in a convention room, like I'm like this, like the other day I saw a picture. It was one of these convention shows. It was Rhea Ripley with her world title, women's title, and Trinity with the Impact title. They're just talking. Like there's nothing going on. There's no arguments. They're just smiling. They're hanging out. Like it doesn't matter. It's like you meet people through something that you love. Like I met you guys through this, and this literally is the one of the best parts of my days when I come on and talk to all you guys and do the podcast and talk to you guys in Messenger. And like you guys said, it doesn't have to just be wrestling. It could be other stuff. It could be about movies. It could be about music. Like we talk about the Iron Claw movie coming out. We're all excited for that. We talk about like other stuff like sports. People bring other sports up. Someone brings up football in the chat, we'll talk about it. It's just that group, and we all have that where we've got this group to us, but I'm sure a lot of us have another group of friends on the outside world of professional wrestling where we do other stuff with when we talk about, I got you guys. I've got my bowling friends, I got my charity friends. I've got so many people around the world that I know that I'm friends with, and I'm cool with all of it. It's funny because we bring up the idea of like, as pro wrestling fans, how people view us. And it starts with us, honestly. It starts with us as pro wrestling fans to let's give the world a different perspective of like the terms come up, neck breathers, marks, all this stuff, toxicity. It's like, listen, we're just people that love this product, regardless if it's good or bad. We're still going to watch it because we want to be entertained. Yeah. I mean, the funny part is, we bring it up like when I started watching it with my girl, like I told her, I said, hey, I'm into this, by the way. Are you okay if I watch it? Like, she's like, well, I don't care, and she goes, I don't care, like she knows this is something I like, she knows I love this stuff. And she knows a little bit about it too. So it's like, it's crazy, so she knows a little bit about pro wrestling, and I always love telling this story, but when we were watching an AEW show, on TV. I think it was a Dynamite. Luchasaurus was on TV, and she was looking. She goes, "I recognize those tattoos on him." And she pulled up the phone, and she realized it was the guy who was in Big Brother, because she used to watch Big Brother, and he was a competitor on one of the seasons of Big Brother, Luchasaurus. So she's like, "That's who I know him from." And so I was like, it was really funny because, yeah, some of those people that do pro wrestling did other stuff too. They do other stuff. They do other, like, they do music stuff. They do movies. They do television. They do a lot of other stuff. I mean, someone like, Liv Morgan in WWE guest starred on an episode of Chucky. Like they do other media stuff, media shows. So it's like they also do other stuff. Like they don't just do pro wrestling, just like us as fans. We don't just do pro wrestling. We like other stuff. We like other sports. We work. Like we do jobs. Like
Yes.
we have normal lives. This is a part of our lives that we love being involved in, and we meet more people in it. And I don't understand the toxicity of a lot of the pro wrestling fans of choosing one promotion over another, when really we all love the same thing. It's pro wrestling. Regardless if you love the old classical stuff like from the 80s, or all the crazy high-end crash TV stuff you saw in the 90s, to some of the rise of PG between 2000 and 2015, or whether it's other promotions like a Lucha Underground, like a AAA, like an MLW, like a women's thing like WoW, or like Shimmer, or AEW, or WWE, Impact. It doesn't matter. We're all in a community where, why are we mean to each other when we don't need to be? Is it because we have that feeling of like, this is mine, like this is what I like, and if you don't like it, you're in the wrong? It's the same thing in a lot of other subjects, and I don't want to bring those up, but a lot of people know what I'm talking about. It's the same in a lot of subjects in the real world, because everyone's going to have their view or opinion on something, and you can't change someone's opinion on something. It's their opinion, and you can't change that no matter how hard you try. You can only respect it. And so I feel that's the same with pro wrestling, is everyone's going to have their own opinion on a product. Doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just their opinion. Just be respectful about it, and don't call them out. Don't call them names. Like, don't bring personal stuff in. I hate reading boards where people say something about a product and someone says, "Oh, your mother like teach you that," or something. It's like, dude, you don't have to bring people's families into conversation like that. Yeah. Like it's just toxic, and it is the one thing that I hate sometimes about fans of anything, whether it's sports, whether it's pro wrestling, whether it's music. Listen, I don't like Taylor Swift. I don't like her music. I don't mind her as a person. She's a human being still. I just don't like her music. But it's like, you're so wrong. Oh, you're a terrible person. Why am I a terrible person? Because I just don't prefer her music. I'd rather listen to Ice Nine Kills than Taylor Swift. I'm sorry, that's just my taste. But that's it. Everyone's got different taste. Just be respectful about it. Some people still listen to Justin Bieber. I thought he went back to Canada and disappeared, but he's still around. But that's just my take on it. Is it's like before I was like, I'm very like because I'm very defensive sometimes, and I get angry sometimes. But it's like I gotta start learning to be like, you know what? Just chill. You don't have to overthink stuff. You don't have to get angry about stuff. Like, it is part of nature, of human nature, to be angry about stuff, but be angry about the right stuff. Yes. Like if I'm playing a game of like cornhole and I miss the hole, I'm not gonna be like, mother, I'm like, oh, well, I missed. Okay, cool, move on. Like, it's, so I do the same thing with bowling. With bowling, I do the same thing. If I screw up in bowling, I get mad at myself. I'm like, why am I getting mad? I'm not that great of a bowler to begin with. I just need to take my time with it and just have fun. So, but it's the same with pro wrestling fans. It's every fan base. They're going to have those toxic people that are like, they just want to start stuff. It's like, listen, just be happy with your product. Be happy that things are striving right now, or thriving right now for your promotion that you're a fan of. If you want to watch other stuff, by all means, watch other stuff. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It's fine. Like Mark said, like AEW, like their product is just more preferable for me right now too. Like, as much as I appreciate what WWE is trying to do with their product right now, especially under creative now with Hunter. I understand where they're going with it. They're getting more business in other countries. Good for them. They just announced that they're doing a show in France, which good for them. They're expanding to other countries. So happy for them. With AEW, they just signed Will Ospreay. Happy for them. They're going to go back to Wembley next year. Happy for them. Like, I'm not going to say anything negative about any promotion that's thriving right now. I just prefer to watch AEW. I'll still follow results for WWE and see what they're doing. But it just, the toxicity, it's just too much for me. And especially on today's day, like Thanksgiving, and giving thanks and being nice with everybody. Maybe you should give thanks that we still have pro wrestling today. It has lasted. Brother. Yeah, it has lasted for so long. It is, it's for me, it's like the same thing with amateur wrestling, because amateur wrestling, if a lot of people know or don't know, started way back in ancient Greece, like in Athens, like in that old era, like where they would wrestle in coliseums in front of crowds. They would only do it in like cloth, like you could see their little, but how it evolves. It's the same thing with anything, especially pro wrestling. It evolves and it's still going. Some last longer than others. Promotions, but it's still there to its core. It's still there. There's still fans of certain stuff in pro wrestling that's still there today, and I think a lot of people have lost base on that.
And you know what? And there's still the individuals like going to all the events, whether it's a con or if it's or if it's just going to a wrestling event, whether it's Indies or AEW or WWE. People are still going there to have a good time and enjoy wrestling. And you know what? That's one thing that I'm always thankful for every year is professional wrestling. We have stories. We have great strengths being, shown day in, day out. We have characters being fleshed out. And then we also go back to a simpler time when we were kids, growing up on wrestling, And I feel like now it's like maybe people should forget about all the tribalisms and the hate. And let's just enjoy wrestling. If I don't like WWE, you know what? Yeah, I give my criticisms for WWE, but I'm not wishing for WWE to go out of business, for Hunter to die, for Tony Khan to die. I don't wish AEW out of business. I want AEW, Impact, TNA. I want everybody to succeed. I want everybody to support the sport of professional wrestling because the wrestlers are. Wrestlers behind the scenes. They're talking with each other in both companies and enjoying their life and enjoying their careers. As fans, maybe we should start doing the same. So as we start to wind down here, I'm not sure if Mark's coming back on or if Connor's going to be on. But Adam, what wrestler are you thankful for this Thanksgiving? What wrestler are you thankful for?
Oh man, can I do a past one and then a current one?
Yeah. Let's do one past, one current.
So past wrestler I was thankful for. And it's cliche, but one I was thankful for because I always mention him is Owen Hart. He was one of the greats. Regardless of not winning a world title, still one of the best character and one of the best technical wrestlers on TV. And then I think my current wrestler I'm thankful for. I think it's going to be. It's very hard, but. I think it's a tie between MJF because he understands the heart and soul of pro wrestling. He understands it, the lineage of pro wrestling. And I think the other one I'm going to say that I'm thankful for is our fearless leader, Danhausen.
Yes. Very nice. Very cool. And probably going to be very full this Thanksgiving.
Yes, very full. So Danhausen, if you ever watch this show, I hope you get plenty of human monies and you stay uncursed.
For myself, there is, I think going back to the past, and looking at it, I really think for me, it's the work ethic of Bret Hart. For me, it's Bret Hart because, when I started getting more into the classic wrestling, he was one of the first, wrestlers in the 80s I started watching. And just to see his work ethic, and just to see, how much that he did for a lot of wrestlers and his smoothness, it was just so much fun to watch. And to have a man be so passionate about it and to have where he was behind his Canadian fan base saying, hey, I don't want to lose in Canada. And for literally giving it all and to be screwed over and, you know, eventually to make amends with the man that screwed him over. Like that gives a lot on his character. And then, of course, for me right now with current wrestling, I'm going to have to go with Darby Allin. You know, for me, Darby and I are about the same kind of height, same build, except for I'm a little more chunky. But to have someone his size be on the main stage in the spotlight that he is, he's shown that a lot of kids that are smaller, that may not be able to be the 6'8", you know, jacked, you know, Hogan. You know, he's shown that, hey, there is another way to get into wrestling or whatever career you want to do, whatever sport. And for me, I think Darby, whether it's his music, or his movie projects and all that, like I feel like he's giving his 110%. And to, you know, give the respect to Darby and how he treats his fans, Darby Allin, if you're watching this, man, I thank you for, you know, all us short guys out there giving us a way to actually prove themselves and, you know, being there for a lot of your fans and not having any issues with meeting your fans. I respect and love you, brother.
Yeah, no, those are good choices. And I love that we both picked the Hart brothers because,
yes.
I mean, growing up, I mean, we talk about family, like, especially like today, Thanksgiving, we talk about giving thanks to our families and everything like that. I mean, all the wrestling families out there, you know, pro wrestling families, you know, from the Von Erichs to the Harts, you know, just to the Guerreros, like
the Rhodes.
Yeah, the Rhodes family. You know, it is something that it's funny because it is, you see it, everything does evolve around family, especially during these times, during the holidays. Like it's all about having that family like with you, regardless if it's extended or your close personal family or, you know, your significant other, your kids, you know, nephews, nieces. I think it's just something that, especially as wrestling fans, like it's not only we're thankful for the product that we watch, but it's thankful that we have people that understand that we like it, like and understand that we're nerds about it. You know, whether it be the classic stuff or even the newer pro wrestling stuff. Like, I think that's the most important thing we can learn on this holidays like today. Like, hey, listen, we're all a little effed up in the head, but hey, we're all human. We're allowed to be. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but let's just enjoy life right now, you know? So, cause you know, tomorrow's not promised. All we got is today, and we just take it one day at a time. That's pretty much all you can do.
That's all you got to do, my friend. And I think that's a great way to end the episode. Adam, thank you so much for coming on and spending your Thanksgiving with us. Mark, I don't know what happened to him, but Mark, thank you again as well if you're listening. And then, of course, all the listeners at home, thank you for spending your Thanksgiving with us here at the All Elite Zone podcast. We have a lot of fun things in the works coming up. We got a spinoff coming up that Adam is working on currently for pop culture. So make sure you guys stick around for that because that project I'm excited to help him out with and help him get that started.
Sorry, you made me cough. Yeah, no, I'm really excited for that too. But I'm just excited for the future of pro wrestling, man. You know, excuse me. We're winding down 2023, getting ready for 2024, and we'll see what it brings.
So I'm going to announce it here first on Talking Elite. We're going to do a special month for the Von Erich family and for the Iron Claw movie that's coming out. We're going to have some movie-themed episodes along with an episode dedicated to the Von Erichs themselves in the month of December, along with our 1-year anniversary for Talking Elite and 2-year anniversary for the All Elite Zone podcast. It's been a lot of fun this past year. A lot of things have changed, of course. But we like to thank all the listeners. You know, we are very thankful for you guys and the support day in, day out, week after week, coming on the live stream while you're watching wrestling or while you're coming on and talking with us on Talking Elite. Adam, is there anything else you want to add before we sign off for the night?
Oh, yeah, no, just make sure you keep hitting that like button, the subscribe, share us with your friends. Share us with everybody. We just don't talk all elite wrestling. We talk everything wrestling. So you got people out there that are friends that, like WWE, TNA, whatever. We talk about everything. So have them watch some of our show. Always, you follow us on Spotify. Just keep up with us. I know Connor's got something planned for our 2-year show with a big interview plan. I'm really excited for it. I think we all are. It might be our biggest interview yet on the show. So just stay tuned for that. And like Lane said, yes, I am in the works of making my own podcast show about pop culture. As we mentioned earlier, we all have interest in something else. Me, I like pop culture stuff. That's why I'm really good at trivia. So make sure, I'll keep you guys updated. I'm still trying to plan it all out. I'm still working kinks out on how to run it. Like I said, I think I'll do it through what we use for our show, which is StreamYard. So we got that planned as well.
Like I said, it's gonna be a fun, rest of the year. Great 2024 coming up. We cannot wait to share with you guys and cannot wait to grow. So, Adam, if there's nothing left to be said, on this, episode on Thanksgiving, I think it's time you say your catchphrase and sign us off for the night.
Happy Thanksgiving, and as always, good night.